What's up, guys? Untitled Jackpot coming at you. It is April 7th, 2022. And it's time for another college football schedule preview video for the 2022 season. Before we go any further, if you're new around here, stay true around here. If you like the content that you see, hit it with a thumbs up. Click the notification bell. Oh, and before you do all that, subscribe to the channel. We do college football content around here all year long, and we have a heck of a good time doing it, especially when the season goes. It really gets exciting around here. It gets crunk. So we got to talk about schedules right now, though. That's really about all we can talk about. Or else we want to talk about what happened in spring practice, which is, well, I don't know. I don't know what happened in spring practice. We're not really allowed to see that. South Carolina, my Gamecocks, is a spring game coming up, not this Saturday night, but next Saturday night. Looking forward to that one. Today we want to talk about one of my favorite college football teams out there, and definitely one of my favorite members of the Southeastern Conference, Eastern Division, the Tennessee Volunteers, the Footballs. Right? Finished 7-5 last year in the regular season, which had to be, to a Tennessee fan, that had to be huge. In the first year under Jeremy Pruitt. First year under Josh Heupel, guy had his back against the wall, didn't he? That stacked against him. People didn't want him. People didn't like the new athletic director. People wanted Jeremy Pruitt fired too, though. So it turned out really good. Now Tennessee fans tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. Didn't nobody not want him? I don't know what you're talking about. No, you didn't. I can go back and pull the Facebook posts. I can pull the tweets from there early in 2020. They didn't want him around. No, 2021, excuse me. After Jerome Pruitt was fired. However, Heupel ends up in his first year against all odds going 7-5 in the regular season, finishing up 7-6 after a bowl loss to Purdue. Finished better than any of Jeremy Pruitt's teams did. So that's a huge feather in his cap, and they look to build upon that. 7-6, the bowl game, you lost to Purdue. Tennessee fans sit there and whine and bitch about that one. Oh, the refs cheated us. They took touchdown away. But well, that may be true. But you know what? Anytime you got to bitch about the refs screwing you in a game like that, you probably had multiple opportunities to win the thing earlier in life. And you did. You did. You continued to let Purdue score in that game and come back, and ultimately it bit you in the checkered orange ass because you lost. Anyway, we're not here to rehash 2021 so much. We're here to talk about the present, which is 2022, and your schedule coming up. And this thing, it kind of has a familiar ring to it. Ball State, you opened up with them at home, a MAC opponent. You opened up with a MAC opponent last year in Bowling Green on a Thursday night. Opening up on a regular Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening this time against Ball State. Ball State's a tougher team than Bowling Green was by far. Ball State's near the top of the MAC. Bowling Green was near the bottom. Ball State's been to bowl the past couple of years and competed for MAC championships. I think Tennessee will take care of them, and I don't think it'll be relatively close, but this is a much tougher opponent than what you started out with last year. The next week, you go to Pitt. Last year in week 2, you played Pitt at home. Pitt is always a funny team to figure out. They're just really difficult to predict. They could go 4-8. They could go 9-3. They could win the ACC like they did last year. Well, that don't happen very often. Well, that's never happened. But it happened last year. They could compete for the ACC championship. I say that. They've done that before. They could knock off Clemson. Or, they could lose to Duke and Wake Forest and Syracuse and win 3 games. You just don't know. They're the Auburn of the ACC. So this year, I expect them to be down a bit. I really do. Especially with losing Kenny Pickett. Well, not especially with, because of losing Kenny Pickett. That was their bread and butter. Best player on the team by far. Probably best quarterback to play at Pitt since Dan Marino has gone to the NFL draft. I think that's seriously going to hurt you. And this is a game that I think not only do I think Tennessee feels like they have a chance to win, I think you probably ought to win this game. It's on the road, yeah, but I don't really know that that's a raucous atmosphere to play a college football game in. Now, back in the day, and a lot of my younger viewers, you won't recognize this connotation, won't know what the hell I'm talking about, but they actually played in a stadium known as Pitt Stadium. That was back before Heinz Field was built. This was back when Three Rivers Stadium would have been the baseball stadium where the Pirates played and the Pittsburgh Steelers played. The Pitt Panthers played in Pitt Stadium. And it was like a pit. It was, you entered the stadium from the top, and it was just a bowl. And that place got loud, and it was normally packed. And that was a tough venue to play. Yeah. However, most of those teams are a lot better than what they've been putting on the product lately. Say last year, a really good team. That was a once in every 10-year type thing. It'll be a good game. I don't know. I'm not making any official predictions on games right now. Well, I think Tennessee stands an excellent shot of winning that game on the road and going 2-0. The next week, you play at home against Akron. You should be ashamed of yourselves for scheduling that game. Akron is worse than the Bowling Green team that you opened up with. By far, probably the worst team in FBS. I mean, just no sense in even playing that game. That was supposed to be a home game against Army. However, Tennessee bought their way out of that game because they were scared to play Army. And you can look at it any way you want to. Say, well, we didn't want to come back from a road trip and have to play a team that, we could get injured against, blah, blah, blah. Then we had to play Florida the next week. I don't know what all the excuses were as to why they didn't want to play it, but they didn't want to play it. They were scared to play Army. Well, why did you even agree to schedule them in the first place if you're scared to play them? Ridiculous. So you'll beat Akron. Hope you feel good about that. The next week, Tennessee takes on Florida. That's in Neyland Stadium. Tennessee lost to Florida last year like 24 points or something on the road. And, at the end of the season, if you had stacked that up, nobody would have believed that even happened. Because Florida totally fell apart second half of the season. Tennessee progressively got a little bit better every week. Even though they lost some of those games, they were playing some tough competition, i.e. Georgia and Alabama. Yeah, you got to think, these two teams play every year. They're rivals. Tennessee went, 10, 11 years in a row without beating the Gators, and the Gators had some awful teams during that time as well. Last year's Gator team was awful, especially the second half of the season, but they beat you pretty handily in Gainesville. It was just a tale of two teams. You got to think that Tennessee thinks this will be a victory. I mean, and it should be new coach coming in for Florida, Billy Napier. Really don't know what he's going to have. Word is coming out of their spring practices that that depth is an issue. Yeah, and I could see that. In the second half of the season last year, they definitely looked the part of depth of being an issue. So that'll be a big game for Tennessee, and to me, that's a must-win. You got to win that game. You got to win that game at home. You can't let first-year head coach, first-year Power 5 head coach, Billy Napier, come into Knoxville and beat you. He's just not that good. I just don't think he's that good. The next week are off, so you got an early season off week, and then you're taking on LSU at home. No, it's on the road. Excuse me. Big game for Tennessee. Big spot here. A big game against a big name in LSU. It was just a couple of years ago. They were running through their opponents like shit through a screen fence on their way to a national championship. Those days are long gone. They absolutely fell apart the next year, and last year didn't do much better. Actually did worse, and out goes Ed Orgeron amidst a bunch of controversy with him as well, and maybe some of his behavior off the field. First-year coach and Brian Kelly takes over at LSU. I think he immediately is going to make LSU better. They're recruiting well. Got a ton of talent on the team still. How's Tennessee going to do against them? I don't know. I think you've got to win either the game against Florida or the game against LSU, if not both of them, for people to take you seriously. Brian Kelly coming in first year as head coach here in SEC, still a better coach than Josh Heupel, and that's not a knock on Josh Heupel. I'm not knocking on the guy. There's a lot of coaches who aren't as good as Brian Kelly. 90% of college football coaches are not as good as Brian Kelly. I would venture probably say 95% of them aren't as good as Brian Kelly. So take that with a grain of salt. Take it as you wish. That's going to be a tough game. But I think it's one you got to win if you really, really want to turn that corner. Next game at home, third Saturday in October against Alabama. Your rivals. Tennessee hadn't beat them since, 2006, 2007. This is another big game. Played well against them last year for 3 quarters, and then depth was an issue in the fourth quarter, and they kind of had their way with you. But I would definitely, if you talk to an Alabama fan that said they weren't nervous after the third quarter, they'd be lying. They would be lying. So that's going to be a big game at home. I think Tennessee, if you come into this game, maybe a one-loss team, maybe you come in undefeated. This could definitely be the game of the year. This could definitely be a game of the year situation. And I think Tennessee will play well again at home there. Next week, you take on UT Martin at home. We're not even going to talk about that. Tennessee run roughshod over the Skyhawks. Next week, you're at home against Kentucky, another home game, and you beat them last year in Lexington with Kentucky. Finished second in the East, and you knocked them off, and that was a high-scoring game. We won 45-42, back and forth. I wanted to actually watch that game, as I knew it would be entertaining. The Gamecocks were playing that night against, I can't remember if that was Auburn or Florida. And I wouldn't turn it off of our game. I think it was a Florida game. So I really didn't get to watch a whole lot of it. But what I saw of it was an exciting game. Tennessee's kind of owned Kentucky throughout history. You've beaten them, 33 out of the past 35 times that y'all have met or something like that. But the past 7-8 years, they've been a better program than you have. But Tennessee still found a way to come out on top against Kentucky. Are they going to be able to do it this year? Kentucky still is returning some talent offensively. This Rodriguez guy's back. This quarterback's back again. Defense looks to be solid again. Could be a tough test for you at home. I think they'll be looking for a little bit of revenge. I think they probably wish they could play that one again. And guess what? They get to. Next week, you're on the road at Georgia. I look for this to be a closer game than it was last year. Even though it is on the road, you had them. You played Georgia pretty well last year in the first half. And in the second half, just like the Alabama game, became an issue. And they had their way with you there. Do I think Tennessee's good enough to win at Georgia? Only time will tell. But that's another big game there. Another one you'd certainly like to have. Going to be a tall order, though. Georgia still, even though they've lost a lot, they still return a lot, and they've recruited at an insanely high level. We'll see what happens there. The next week, you're at home against Missouri. The team you blew out last year, 62-24. I don't see them giving up that many points again this year. Certainly, their defense is kind of after the game against Tennessee. Their defense kind of got progressively better, and which my Gamecocks experienced that firsthand. This is a game I think Tennessee will be favored in, and you should win. Crazy things happen when Missouri is involved. They just do. It's just kind of a quirky kind of situation whenever you have the Yellow Taters from out there in the fake Columbia. Next week, you play the team from the real Columbia, South Carolina, the Pearl, in the middle of the oyster that is the state of South Carolina. on the road in the Pearl. Yeah, South Carolina got to play better than we did last year against Tennessee. Probably the worst showing all year from South Carolina. Well, no, maybe it was a Clemson game. But maybe it was a Texas A&M game. What? Maybe it was 59 minutes of the Vanderbilt game. I'm not sure. It was a bad showing by us on the road. South Carolina certainly will have to be up for this game, and I think they will. Probably is. Tennessee comes into this one. All your toughest games are behind you. So you're going to be looking here to get away. You might be looking here to kind of solidify something. Maybe you're looking to clinch second place in the SEC East. I really don't know what we're going to look like at this point in the season. In South Carolina, who knows what we'll look like. South Carolina's been known, and knock on wood, it does not happen, but South Carolina's been known to get bit by the injury bug in the mid to late season. So hopefully that doesn't happen this year. I don't think that it will. I think that aspect of our game has gotten a little better, or at least it got a little bit better last year under strength and conditioning coach Luke Day. Hopefully that will continue to be the trend, and we won't see any nagging injuries that really kind of derail our season a little bit. And then the next week you're on the road at Vanderbilt to end the regular season. And obviously I think Tennessee will be favored there. Vanderbilt just can't match up talent-wise with Tennessee, although they have beaten you 5 out of the last 10 times they played you, which is funny to talk about. But I think obviously Tennessee on the upward trend. Vanderbilt, either getting worse or treading water. I'm really not sure. I really don't wish for a lot of success for Vanderbilt, because I didn't like the way they got rid of Derek Mason. I thought the guy was a good coach. I don't think there was any reason to get rid of him. I don't think that you're going to find anybody else that's going to do a better job at Vanderbilt than what he did, and you saw that last year. You almost lost to freaking UConn, for goodness sake. So, Tennessee, looking at this thing, man, if they play, if you take last year's team, you build on it a little bit, you get a couple of pieces offensively that you didn't have, play better defense, and I can see Tennessee winning 10 ball games. If none of those things happen, I could see you winning 6 or 7 ball games again. Usually those things kind of tend to fall somewhere in the middle. I say you probably win 8 games. That's just me. But impressive job by Josh Heupel in year 1, and I think he'll build on it in year 2. And people, they ask me, why does Carolina Jackpot give Tennessee, what do you mean to us? Why do you give us such a hard time? Well, number one, I had a bad experience with some of your fans a few years ago down at Williams-Brice Stadium. They're cocky and rude and idiotic. Now, that's not a reflection on the whole Tennessee fan base, but it is what it is, and it pissed me off at the time. And number 2, I honestly don't like the fact that they seem to be on the come up, and they're doing it a little bit faster than we are. I just don't like that. I'm still salty and pissed about the fact that after 2013, the South Carolina's program just took a freaking nosedive. I have not gotten over that. And, if you were a true fan, you wouldn't have been able to get over it either. It's hard to swallow. We had the world at our fingertips. We were there. We had arrived. We were just, a win here or there away from making, a BCS bowl, playoff, whatever you want. Well, no playoffs back then, but we were that close. Let's just say that we were that close. Best we could do was a number 4 national ranking after beating Wisconsin in the freaking Credit Card Bowl. And, I want better than that. And that's why I'm a little bit salty. So, anyway, that's what I think about Tennessee's schedule for 2022. What do you think about Tennessee's schedule for 2022, and what kind of overall record do you see them ending up with? Do you think it's about on par with mine? You think they do better than what I think? You think they do worse? Give me your thoughts. I'll talk to y'all later. Appreciate it. Peace. And I'm out. Go Gamecocks and go Coach Beamer. Woo!